That's wonderful. How about the sales department? Are you there?
Marketing and sales. Ready.
Thank you. Okay, engineering department. Are you there?
Engineering department. Stand by.
Stand by. We're on the air in a minute.
Engineering, ready.
Thank you very much. B-Duke department, please. Thank you, John Paul George. And ready. Okay, prepare to fade down the musical background as we go to the 10-second countdown for the Tom Leykis show. Thank you. We are 10 seconds away from the start of the Tom Leykis show. All departments, all personnel, stand by. The Tom Leykis show is about to go on the air. At 3 seconds, we will go to silence, and then we will cue the opening theme for the Tom Leykis show. Stand by. Cue the theme.
From Los Angeles, it's the Tom Leykis Show.
Oh, God.
And now, he is Tom Leykis.
6 minutes after the hour, thank you for tuning into the Tom Leykis Show. This is where America gets together to talk about the issues you really care about. We're America's fastest growing radio talk program, a talk show that is not hosted by a right-wing wacko or a convicted felon. No. I am your host. Write down this toll-free telephone number. You're going to need it. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Thank you so much for tuning into our program. And I might tell you before we get started with this hour that we are being simulcast on C-SPAN, which is a cable network that broadcasts a variety of political speeches, the House of Representatives. You have seen all kinds of events. They follow the presidential campaigns and what have you. And what they do is they stick a camera in the room with me or with whoever they're doing for the entire length of the broadcast. And I guess the idea is, and I've never spoken to the folks at C-SPAN about this, but I guess the idea is that somewhere along the way, someone is getting the idea that talk radio is the wave of the future. Somewhere along the line, someone is getting the idea that the voice of the people is spoken through talk radio. And somewhere along the way, someone is getting the idea that this is a very valuable part of democracy. And that is only part true. I will tell you why it is only part true. You know, there are an awful lot of people who think that talk radio speaks for America. That when you turn on a radio talk program, you are hearing exactly how America feels. When I'm interviewed by newspapers, when people ask me what I do for a living, how I do it, what the phone callers are like, what the mail is like, what the mood of the people is, they're always getting this impression that somehow what's going on here is reflective of America. I want to correct some mistaken impressions on this program. Number one, this is not reflective of America any more than one of those dopey 900 polls they have on hard copy. You ever see those? Have you seen Elvis? Yes. Call 1-900. No, 1-900. And, of course, they say it's 50 cents a call, and these are not scientific. Talk radio is no different than that. The reason is, of course, with a 1-900 poll where people are paying to call in, first of all, anybody can call in. Second of all, anybody can call in repeatedly. Third of all, everybody can't afford 50 cents to call a radio talk show or to call a poll on television. So right away, it's not scientific. What gives anybody the idea that talk radio is any more democratic than one of these dopey tabloid polls? May I say that talk radio is the fastest growing format in the radio industry? May I say that talk radio has gone from about 150 radio stations broadcasting a full-time talk format to almost, how many now? 1,200 today? Almost 1,200 radio stations broadcasting this format. It's growing by leaps and bounds. Also, may I tell you that according to radio industry sources, of all of the radio formats, and I'm talking about adult music stations, rock and roll, hip-hop, alternative, of all of the formats, this is the most profitable format on radio. It's a very expensive format to run, but it is the most expensive and the most profitable at the same time. If stations invest the money, hire the people, make the station sound good, and hang in with it for a few years, talk radio is extremely good business. Having gotten that out of the way, as the third largest radio format in America, what percentage of radio listenership goes to talk radio? Of all of the formats on the radio. Now, for all the publicity we get, and for all of the growth I just told you about, how much of a percentage would you think we get? 50%, right? 60%. 70%, right? You've heard about Rush Limbaugh, and you've heard about G. Gordon Liddy, and maybe you've heard about this program years ago. You heard about the Larry King Show. It's gotta be some huge percentage, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that as the third largest format and the fastest growing format in the radio industry, talk radio receives 15% of the listenership. You multiply the number of people listening by the number of minutes they listen in a given week, and it comes out to 15% of the total listenership. That means that with all of the stations on your radio dial right now, 85% of the listenership is going to those other formats. 85%, because there are so many formats. There's country. There's something called adult contemporary. That's your Whitney Houston, Phil Collins station, okay? The Mariah Carey station. There's top 40, not as much as there used to be. There's something called alternative, the station that'll play Pearl Jam or Stone Temple Pilots. There are Spanish language stations, religious stations. There's all kinds of stations. 15% of the listenership goes to talk radio. 85% doesn't. Now, I say this for a reason. Because when 85% of the listening is not done to talk radio stations, how representative are the callers who call talk shows? Talk radio is not reflective of America. Talk radio is an accurate reflection of the people who listen to it. A largely white, more than likely male, largely over 40 audience. That's who's listening. That's who's calling. That's who you are hearing from. It does not represent people of color. It does not represent liberals. It does not represent, I say it doesn't represent, well, women. You don't hear a lot of female voices at the microphone, and you don't hear a lot of female voices calling in. Now, how can anybody listen to that and say that it is somehow representative of America? It is not representative of America. What it is representative of a very vocal and politically active minority, one that you have to pay attention to, but certainly not the majority of people who live in America. Most of the people listening to me right now and watching on television have never even tried to call in on a radio talk program like this one. And what is frustrating to me is that people listening to talk radio and hearing the older, white, male voices who tend to call every single show are under the impression that America has become a right-wing, very conservative place. I aim to prove to you during this broadcast that America is not as conservative as people say it is. And I also aim to point out to you why the President of the United States is partly responsible for the perception that America is more conservative than it really is. When we continue, I'm going to tell you why that is. And when we continue, I'm going to tell you about some of my experiences with the White House. I know the White House is watching today, by the way. And I'm going to give you an idea of where I'm coming from on this. I'm going to tell you why liberals are on the run. And I'm telling you this as someone who is not an extreme liberal. I'm in the middle. And I think most Americans are in the middle. Unfortunately, the Newt Gingriches and the Rush Limbaughs of the world have redefined every word, every phrase. They've done a masterful job of it. And the Bill Clintons of the world have done a lousy job. And I will tell you why as we continue. 16 minutes after the hour from Los Angeles, my name is Tom Leykis.
Coast to Coast, the Tom Leykis Show.
An announcement on headache medicines.
One of the largest healthcare providers is offering their pharmacies a different brand of acetaminophen pain reliever than last year.
They now offer aspirin-free Anacin instead of extra-strength Tylenol, both of which contain acetaminophen.
They know aspirin-free Anacin is every bit as strong for even stubborn headaches.
Yet it, too, is so gentle on your stomach, most people with ulcers can take it.
So follow one of the leading healthcare providers.
And remember, you, too, have a choice and choose aspirin-free Anacin.
Use as directed.
Mr. Hughes, we know you're in there.
Hey, what's this about?
Holiday shopping, Mr. Hughes. Holiday shopping.
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't do it.
We know you didn't do it. You'd better come with us.
Where?
Radio Shack Gift Express. First, we'll help you choose from among dozens of the most wanted gifts. Then we'll wrap, pack a nice card, and ship them by FedEx delivery service.
Sounds easy.
Right.
How come?
Mister, we're Radio Shack. You've got questions, we've got answers.
It's the week before Christmas, so finish off your list at Sears Brand Central, where everything is on sale.
What perfect timing.
All electronics are on sale. All TVs, camcorders, VCRs, stereos, all computers. All major appliances are on sale. All washers, dryers, refrigerators, microwaves, vacuums, too.
A Christmas shopper's dream.
3 days only, Thursday through Saturday. Don't miss it.
Miss it? I wouldn't dream of it.
At Sears, where wishes come home for the holidays. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
Holiday bestsellers. How about soap on a rope or fruitcake on a rope? No? Well, how about holiday bestsellers from your AT&T phone center? Yeah, now some of our most popular gifts are on sale, like selected AT&T cordless phones and answering systems. Perfect for someone you love who's on the go. Oh, and the AT&T Clock Radio Telephone 340 makes a great gift. Your AT&T phone center has a big selection of holiday bestsellers on sale. Perfect, huh? Yeah, but bestsellers go fast, so you should too. Sale ends December 31st while supplies last at your AT&T phone center.
All I want for Christmas is a picture frame.
And I want an 8-inch chef's knife by Trident and a Henkel's bread knife.
I want a side table and a crystal vase.
I want copper cookware by Allclad, the best garlic press and oversized dinner plates.
Yes, the real French ones by Pelevite.
Oh, where do we go?
To Chef's Depot and Habits at the north end of the Pike Place Market. It's the wonderful new all-in-one store.
Well, I'll go to Habits for all your Christmas wishes.
And I'll go to Chef's Depot and buy you all new kitchen tools and maybe even a gift certificate.
Chef's Depot.
And Habits.
At the Pike Place Market next to the Seattle Athletic Club.
Call 728-2828.
The holidays may have you thinking of celebrating the new year, but at Valley Pontiac Buick GMC, they're celebrating their 30th year. Have you seen the brand new 1995 GMC Jimmy? Now, there's the sport utility vehicle for winter weather. As a thank you to their valued customers, the other Valley guys are offering great deals on 95 models, as well as their remaining 94s. And check out their few remaining 94 Pontiac Grand Ams, too. So celebrate the holidays and 30 years in business at Valley Pontiac Buick GMC. See my friends on Auburn Way North in Auburn.
You can see that we mean business the moment you walk in. We got so much more to offer, but anywhere you've been, Office Max, taking it to the max.
Stocking stuffers for your office staff. Always a problem. Well, here are some great stocking stuffer ideas. Top quality 3M Post-it notes in neon colors. Get a free neon Post-it notepad when you buy 5 3x3 neon Post-it notepads. And for your parties or extra space anytime, the versatile 6-foot folding table from Beavis. It has positive gravity locking legs and it's just $35.97.
Take it to the max. We got everything you need. Keep your office going. Build your company. Office Max. Taking it. Office Max. To the max.
5 area locations, including the newest store in Federal Way at the intersection of Pacific Highway and South 320th, and in Bellevue at Sternco Center, Northeast 20th and 148th Avenue.
What makes a weekday morning easier on your brain? Pat Cashman and his morning crew. Catch them weekday mornings 5 to 9 right here on Cairo FM 100.7.
Minutes after the hour, coast to coast, it's the Tom Leykis Show. Thanks for tuning in. Talking about where this country really is at and why people are somehow getting the idea that talk radio speaks for America. that talk radio somehow is representative of the masses. A medium that is largely devoid of women, people of color, liberals. How can it speak for America? It speaks for older, white, suburban, male America. And anyone who listens to this medium and says, I'm getting the whole picture, is a fool. May I say that? And that is my fear about all the focus on talk radio. Let me read to you some statistics from last week's Time magazine. They commissioned a survey, and this was a poll of 800 adult Americans taken by Yankelevich Partners back in the first week of December. And a bunch of questions were asked. And, of course, as you hear Newt Gingrich talking about the contract with America and how everybody wants the balanced budget amendment, the line item veto, welfare reform, et cetera, tax cuts for families, and the fact that Republicans got elected to office somehow means that we all signed on to this. May I read to you some of these statistics from this survey in Time magazine? Question. Is it fair to cut off government payments to people who've been on welfare for 2 years, even if they have no other source of income? Now, you would think by listening to Newt and to Rush Limbaugh that this would be just unbelievably fair as far as the American people are concerned. Well, guess what? 52% of the American people surveyed in this survey said it's unfair to cut off government payments to people who've been on welfare for 2 years, even if they have no other source of income. 52%, that is a majority, last I checked. 38% said it's fair. Here's another question. Should welfare reform start saving taxpayers money immediately? Or is it more important to train welfare recipients for jobs, which means the government would spend more money in the short run? Spend more money? Train people for jobs? Those lazy slobs. They should have gone to school, for God's sake. You hear the talk radio callers all the time. These lazy bums out there. Well, guess what? 69% of the people surveyed said that we should spend more on job training. It'll cost more in the short run, and in the long run, it's going to save America money. 69%. 24% said start saving now. Forget job training. It goes on from there. Here's another one. If money is saved by cutting government programs, we just heard the president, by the way, who ran for office promising a middle-class tax cut. And I know the White House is watching, so if the White House doesn't understand why people have a problem with Bill Clinton, and I voted for Bill Clinton, may I give you an example? Bill Clinton ran for office promising a middle-class tax cut, something I never believed we would get, something I never believed was recommended or feasible because we had a huge budget deficit. How can you cut people's taxes? But Bill Clinton promised it anyway when he ran for office. Then after he won, shortly before inauguration, I mean, he was not even in yet, he said, well, you know, the budget deficit is so severe, and I had no idea how severe it was, so, hey, I'm not going to give you a middle-class tax cut, sorry. All right, so now we move up a couple of years, and Republicans kick Democratic butt on Election Day, and all of a sudden the same Bill Clinton now finds it in his heart to revive the middle-class tax cut, something which I still think we can't afford to do. Now, am I some wild-eyed liberal? Am I so far out of the mainstream? Am I one of these commie-lib, pseudo-socialists, as Newt Gingrich and Rush Limbaugh would portray people like me? Well, let me tell you what the American people do think. This country that's supposed to be as conservative and right-wing and, frankly, as nasty and unsympathetic as it would be portrayed in talk radio. 29% of the people answered this way, okay? Well, first of all, let me read the question. I forgot to read the question. If money is saved by cutting government programs, should the savings be used to cut middle-class taxes, to reduce the deficit, or to increase spending on other government programs like job training? 29% said cut taxes. 34% said reduce the deficit. 29% said it should be spent on government programs like job training. There you go. In that particular question, 63% of the American people did not want taxes cut. But somehow we've been led to believe that that's what the American people want. We want our taxes cut. Hey, we can't afford to cut taxes, and the American people are not stupid. But if you listen to talk radio, you'd think everybody who doesn't have a job is a lazy welfare cheat, lazy bum, Cadillac welfare mother, etc., etc. The real truth is many people who thought that they would never be looking for help are looking for help. Many people who thought they would never lose their jobs have lost their jobs, and now they are looking for work. Many people who thought their unions would protect them have not been protected, and they are out in the street now. And we have a president who purports to be a liberal, who purports to be a Democrat, who should be able to articulate all of this. And instead, he blows whichever way the wind blows. If it's more expedient to say you want to cut taxes, you say you're going to cut taxes. If it's more expedient to say we're going to provide health care to every single American, everybody, universal coverage, and hold up that health security card, he's going to do that. If it's okay to say, let's cut government spending, let's cut defense spending and have a peace dividend, first he cuts defense spending and gives us the peace dividend. Republicans kick Democratic butt on Election Day, then he says, I'm going to increase defense spending $25 billion. Where is this president? We have people who need a voice. Not for the left wing, not for the right wing, that big group of people in the middle who work hard. They work hard, they have kids, they have families, they do everything they can. Some of them work 2 jobs. Some of them never take vacations. And believe me, they don't break rules, they don't break laws, they don't ask for government handouts, they don't even like collecting unemployment. And some of these people, through no fault of their own, end up in the soup. And people like this need somebody to stand up for them. Bill Clinton can't do it. Bill Clinton won't do it. Bill Clinton hasn't done it. I voted for Bill Clinton. I am not a left-wing extremist. I believe in spending government money wisely. I am someone who is in a CETA program, and I heard Ronald Reagan talk about what a big, colossal waste of money this is, and I watched Reagan and Bush take a hatchet and cut the CETA program to ribbons. Guess what? I wouldn't be standing here today had I not been in a government-run CETA program. We don't have people who can articulate for people in the middle, people who believe in working hard, people who don't commit crimes, people who don't drive up in their Cadillac to the welfare office, people who work hard and through no fault of their own, changing technologies, busted unions, people who thought they'd have jobs there all their lives. All they'd have to do is work hard. All they'd have to do is contribute to society, keep their noses clean, don't get arrested, don't get in trouble, and somehow at the end you'll be able to retire to a condominium in Florida or North Carolina or who knows where. And an awful lot of people have found out that this was just a sell job, that this lifestyle was never going to exist. And we have people in the middle class who have been soaked into believing that America has somehow suddenly become Grinch-like. And they listen to talk radio, and somehow this justifies their feelings. They listen to the racism and the bigotry and the stereotyping that pours out of the speakers day in and day out, all day long. And they somehow believe that it's okay to be a bigot, and it's okay to hate the poor, and it's okay to hate the homeless, because they hear other people on the radio doing it. I've got a lot more to say about this, and I will as we continue.
The Tom Leykis Show.
3:30 at Cairo FM. I'm Sarah Johnson with news. The United States is offering to settle a long-standing dispute with Canada over the rights to salmon. In a new proposal delivered to Canadian officials this week, the U.S. offers to pay for past inequities under a 1985 treaty in exchange for a new agreement to change the way the fishery is divided. The old treaty set limits on the number of fish from each country that the other country could catch, and the Canadians have complained the ceilings are unfair. One U.S. negotiator says under the new agreement, the number of fish taken would be based on percentages rather than a limit. And a nurse's aide fired from Harborview after refusing to cover a tattoo that revealed his HIV-positive status is suing the hospital for discrimination. John Baldetta had been a nurse's aide at Harborview for over a year when he was fired last year. Today he's filing a lawsuit on the grounds his termination was illegal and unconstitutional. Busy traffic out there. Slowdowns on southbound 167 heading into Auburn because of an overturned semi. It's in the grass near the ramp from southbound 167 to westbound 18. Not blocking, but its wheels are sticking straight up in the air, and so wouldn't you slow to look? Southbound 5 is also heavy Northgate to the Ship Canal Bridge, and 405 slows both directions in the Renton area. Mercer, a mess getting to I-5 as you head eastbound. Some increasing high clouds, a little bit of rain in our forecast. More on that when we return here to Cairo FM.
Say, just in case you're still stumped for one really ultimate present to give someone you really, really care about, here's my idea. Slip over to Marcy Jewelry in Bellevue and ask them to show you their collection. It is staggering. It's fabulous. It defies comparison. And most surprising of all, it's priced right. Every diamond, every string of pearls, every piece of 14 and 18 karat gold jewelry. If you consider yourself an expert on precious gems, pearls, gold, and custom-made jewelry, well, you'll immediately recognize Marcy quality as second to none in the nation. If you've done a lot of price shopping, you'll be surprised at how affordable that pearl necklace or that ring or pendant or tennis bracelet can be at Marcy. But if you're neither an expert nor experienced in jewelry, I want you to know that you can trust Marcy to give you more for your investment. Marcy Jewelry in the 40 Lake Bellevue building behind Barrier Motors. There's still time, so don't waste it.
This is our first holiday as a couple, so our gifts have to be great.
Yes.
Hey, look, there's a Wilson's, the leather experts.
Oh, look at this new leather briefcase. How about for Tom?
Great, and that leather jacket for Sandy.
Perfect.
So, who's going to pay?
Well, you paid for those other gifts, sweetie. Let me put it on my Visa card.
No, sugar, I'll put it on my Visa card.
Honey, let me get it.
Temper.
Oh, don't start with the temper thing. You know that.
Now with Visa Rewards, everybody wants to use their Visa card because every time you use it, 10% of your purchase automatically goes towards savings on great vacation packages from Marriott Resorts, Hotels, and Suites, Carnival and Holland America Line Cruises, and American Airlines Flyaway Vacations.
I'll pay, honey buns.
Sorry, love.
And every time you use your Visa card at Wilson's, the leather experts, where there's always a wide selection of affordable men's and ladies' leather jackets, coats, and accessories, 20% of your purchase goes towards Visa Rewards credits. The Visa Rewards program. Your Visa card's never been more rewarding.
Program open to Visa cardholders in good standing as of September 30th, 1994, 18 or older. Other restrictions apply. Only eligible purchases before December 31, 1994 count towards savings. Call 1-800-401-8472 for complete terms.
Some people just lead the way. They reach out and they touch the sky, then spread their wings and pass the whole world by. Some people just know how to fly. Some people just know how to fly. They set a goal and then they aim it high. There isn't any limit to the sky. Some people just know how to fly.
The 43,000 people of Northwest Airlines would like to wish you and yours peace and joy this holiday season.
Some people just know how to fly.
Broadcasting from our nation's capital, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to the Tom Leykis Show.
Y'all ready for this?
26 minutes before the hour. Thank you for tuning into the Tom Leykis Show. This is where we talk about the issues you really care about. Coast to coast from Los Angeles. And toll free at 1-800-5800-TOM. We're a new radio program. We've been on the air since May. And we are being simulcast today on C-SPAN. You can see us just by doing some channel surfing. And please, I want to just say this. Do not call up and go,
hello, I'm in Topeka, Kansas, and I was wondering what channel C-SPAN is on my cable. I have Dimension cable.
You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. Because we don't know, okay? I mean, we're here in Los Angeles, and this is where we do the show. So we do not know about your cable company. Just what you do is, and I want to recommend this to the women out there who hate channel surfing. One thing men do, I think, have the edge on. is they know how to take that remote control. Like this one I have right next to me here, and they know just how to go zap, 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 zap until you will find C-SPAN. You might have to go through 40 or 50 channels, but you will find us. Anyway, I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats and some of the problems that the Democratic Party seems to be running into. Because the Democratic Party clearly is not doing a very good job of articulating the problems of people who work. And I must tell you that we have spent an awful lot of time trying to get the President of the United States on our program. May I say our show is broadcast on 110 stations across the country. May I say that we are heard in some of the biggest radio markets in America: Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Detroit on WXYT, Seattle on Cairo FM. We are heard all over America. And we have contacted the White House repeatedly. I have heard the president, and again, I know they're watching at the White House. That's the great thing about being on C-SPAN, because finally I get to say this to somebody who isn't listening to me over at the White House, okay? Let me just say this. We have tried to get President Clinton on this program. Do I agree with everything the president has said or done? No. I have taken the president to task on a variety of issues. Most importantly, I have taken him to task for collapsing like a house of cards on issues like gays in the military, on issues like the middle-class tax cut, which I wasn't in favor of to begin with, but it shouldn't have been promised, etc. But guess what? I'm one of the few radio talk show hosts who voted for Bill Clinton. I am one of the few radio talk show hosts who comes from a working family. And I will tell you about my family in a moment. I am one of the few people who would give him a fair shot on the air. And may I say, we have contacted the White House repeatedly. And how repeatedly? Well, let me show you how repeatedly we have contacted the White House. We have got a variety of faxes that we have sent to the White House. Our show went on the air nationally May 9th, 1994. Here is a fax dated May 13th, 1994. It was addressed to Richard Strauss and Mark Guerin at the White House. And the letter says, I just wanted to introduce myself and my new position as producer of the Tom Leykis Show. We're a brand new show, and we want to make ourselves known to the White House. Here's some information about the show, and it goes on to give some self-serving information about the program. That was 4 days after we went on the air. This was faxed. By the way, the White House says they never received this fax. It was sent to their private fax number. Here's another one dated June 16th. A letter from our producer, Eric Braverman, saying, I just wanted to update you on the Tom Leykis Show. We've been on the air since May 9th, and we're now at approximately 50 stations. We are considered one of the fastest-growing radio talk shows in America. Here is a fax dated July 6th, 1994. To Richard Strauss at President Clinton's radio press office. Richard, I know it's early, but I wanted to plant a seed regarding the elections coming up later this year. Please keep the Tom Leykis Show in mind when planning talk show appearances in relation to the election. Here is another one sent on November 8th, 1994. This is to Richard Strauss. We are interested in interviewing President Clinton briefly on the Tom Leykis Show in the next couple of days. Subject of the show is going to center on the election results from around the country. It would be a very brief interview and to the point, and by the way, done by telephone. May I tell you that we have faxed the White House repeatedly. We have called the White House repeatedly. And we have gotten nowhere in regard to getting not just the president, but the vice president, Mrs. Clinton, or just about any other senior White House official on the program. Now, that's okay. Because may I say, it would be very self-serving for me to think that the president is going to take time out to spend time on my radio program. That's fine. But then we hear people at the White House burbling about how there is this relentless drumbeat of negativism in talk radio. How Rush Limbaugh has 3 unexpurgated hours every day to bash the president, and how the president never gets an opportunity to respond. That is a lie. The president has not only had an opportunity to respond on this program, but various radio talk programs around the country, and the White House has been arrogant, difficult, and frankly unresponsive. I said this on the air a couple of weeks ago. And we got a real fast phone call back from Richard Strauss at the White House, who runs the radio office there, who proceeded to tell us we'd only called him maybe twice since we went on the air in May, and who told us that he hadn't seen any of our faxes when we'd sent a lot of faxes to the White House. But again, it is not just this show. It is plenty of shows. The president has had numerous opportunities to come on the air. But I want to tell you something. Republicans know how to do it. I am speaking as someone who voted for the president. Republicans know how to do it. Newt Gingrich knows how to do it. Congressman Bob Dornan of California knows how to do it. Various Republicans know how to do it. They don't get on the phone with talk radio producers and say, hi, who are the other guests on the show? What are the questions going to be? Who is the host? What is his opinion about that? They don't do that. They come on the air like pit bulls. And if they are challenged by a host, they're going to come on and respond back. The Democrats we have dealt with, and we have tried repeatedly to deal with the Democratic Party, they don't want to come on without making all kinds of conditions, without putting all kinds of prerequisites on us, and we don't do the show that way. We don't, we won't, we haven't. And so what's the result? The result is, on our show, where the president might get the fairest interview, and there are other shows like this one, he won't come on. He won't come on. The vice president, we don't hear anything about him. We don't hear anything about Mrs. Clinton, nothing. So that's okay, because the president is a busy man, and I understand that he just can't respond to every interview request. But let me tell you this. Don't complain about the drumbeat of negativism on talk radio. The White House has been unresponsive to this program and other programs, period. That's all I wanted to say about that. Now, I'll tell you what, we have George Stephanopoulos calling in. All right, I'm going to talk with George Stephanopoulos. But when we are finished, I want to tell you, since the president, in my opinion, is unable to articulate the problems of the real working person, I am going to tell you about the problems of a real working person coming up. George Stephanopoulos joining us from, I assume, the White House. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it. Do I have him on the right line?
Tom, how are you?
All right, I'm doing just fine. George, how are you?
I'm doing great.
What can we do for you?
First of all, I just had to listen to your whine, so it wasn't that great. But
you had to listen to me whine?
First of all, I should say, if you never got your calls answered, that's a mistake, and it's stupid of us, because we have tried to do an awful lot of talk radio. In fact, the president had the first radio talk show briefing ever from the White House back here when we were introducing health care, and 160 radio talk show hosts were on. We've had 60 talk show hosts talk the day after the briefing, and we've tried to do an awful lot of talk radio, and I feel bad that we haven't gotten enough people on your show. That's a mistake, and that's pretty stupid. But I guess what bothers me more is your conviction, and I guess it's heartfelt conviction, that the president hasn't been in here every day standing up for the middle class, the people that you were talking about who work hard every single day. Because I think if you look at the president's record, and I'd be the first to admit that maybe we haven't done a good enough job at getting that record out, you see it's a pretty consistent record of standing up for middle class people, whether it's looking first and foremost at the economic plan. The economy under this president has been the strongest economy in 30 years. It's created over 5.5 million jobs. He's cut government spending. He's helped turn the economy around by making the tough choices to bring down the deficit. And he's done an awful lot for working people, whether it's through expanding the student loan program, expanding other education programs, expanding the national service program, expanding the kind of job training that you're talking about. And you were exactly right that the Republicans cut it for the 12 years before we got here, working hard to make sure we have Head Start and immunization programs for poor kids, and probably one of the biggest tax cuts for working people ever passed, which was the Earned Income Tax Credit, which provided a tax cut of $1,000 for 15 million families earning under $25,000 a year. I know what it was. So, we feel pretty good about the start we've made at helping working people. We feel we have to do a lot more, and because the deficit's come down, because we've cut spending, we think it's okay now to make sure that the middle class gets some of the benefits of that reduced spending in a tax cut.
But wait a minute. The country still has a budget deficit, as I understand, hovering a little bit over $200 billion.
Actually, it's under $200 billion.
Under $200 billion?
Year it'll be under $200 billion, but under about $170.
$170 billion. How can we afford to give anything back? If we're going to cut spending, why not just cut spending? Why give the money back, especially when you look at that Time magazine survey that says that people are not even looking for tax cuts? The conservatives bullied you guys into a corner into believing we want our taxes cut, that we don't want our taxes cut. We want the budget deficit to go down, and the Clinton administration, at least for a while, seemed to be doing that. You can't tell me that this is what the American people want. How all of a sudden can you say, when you still have a $170 billion budget deficit, that now we can afford to give money back? We are still in the hole, George.
Well, there's no question there still is some debt, but the president's cut the deficit in half, number one. And the president believes that people ought to get some of the benefits when you cut government down. It's not enough just to throw it away.
You're not throwing it away. You're cutting down the budget deficit. You're not throwing it away, though.
And we are bringing down the budget deficit, but you can do both. And that's exactly what the president's done.
How do you do that, though?
Here's how you do it. You cut taxes, but you make sure you pay for it. And that's the biggest difference between what...
But you haven't paid for it because you're still in the hole, $170 billion.
Wait a second.
You haven't paid for it.
Every single dollar in this tax cut is paid for.
But isn't part of your job right now to be cutting the budget deficit?
And we are cutting the budget deficit, and the budget deficit is still coming down for 3 years in a row. I would point out, that Republicans talk a lot about tax cuts, but taxes went up every single year, and the deficit went up every single year.
All well and good. And you know what?
Wait.
I think you make a good point when you say that the budget deficit has been coming down, unemployment has been coming down, the economy has been stronger. All true. If that's so, why not keep going in that direction, especially when you look at a survey like the one here in Time magazine that says the majority of Americans are not looking for a tax cut?
Because incomes still aren't going up. And a lot of those people you were talking about, who work 2 jobs, who don't get enough sleep, who can't take a vacation, can use a little bit of extra money to help care for their kids, to help pay for an education. Look at the ideas.
People who don't make money, wait a minute, people who can't make a living don't benefit from tax cuts. Let me tell you something, George.
But we're talking about working people.
I want to talk about a working person to you for a second. My father is 62 years old. He worked for 43 years for the New York Post newspaper in New York City. Rupert Murdoch, who has just offered a $4 million advance to the incoming Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, who is, by the way, in the process of considering whether or not foreign ownership of American and television and radio stations ought to be allowed.
They want to lift all the restrictions on it, the Republicans.
I know that. But my dad, who had his union busted, is sitting home with cancer. He can't get a job. He works part-time in a liquor store. This is a man with 43 years of experience, much of it managerial at a newspaper. Tax cuts don't do him any good. He can't pay for his health insurance, and not only can he not pay for his health insurance, he can't pay the bills. You can cut taxes all you like. These are the people. This is a working person who will not benefit. And the president doesn't understand that there's a lot of people out there like my father. And that is what the American people need, is someone who can articulate this kind of thing. And the president doesn't do it.
That's just not true. Nobody's done more to make sure that people understand the kinds of opportunities we have to provide than President Clinton. And if you look at the kinds of programs he's talked about, whether it's preserving Medicare, preserving disability programs, preserving the unemployment system, making sure that people have adequate job training. I feel your dad is in a tough situation, and it's a horrible situation.
You think he's the only one? You think he's a small minority?
I don't think he's a small minority at all.
Tax cuts don't do people like my father any good.
And tax cuts aren't the only answer, but they're part of the answer.
George, I hate to interrupt, but I have to take a break here. If you can stay, great. If you got to go, I understand, and I thank you for calling in. Stay tuned. We will continue.
This is the Tom Leykis Show.
Another smart solution from the U.S. Postal Service. Man has nightmare. Forgets to send mom a holiday gift. wakes up in cold sweat, calls the post office, finds express mail can still save the day. Express mail delivers last-minute gifts overnight, even on Christmas. Man sends mom gift. Gift arrives on time. Man has new nightmare. Goes to office Christmas party in his underwear. Express mail from the U.S. Postal Service. We deliver overnight for you.
With gifts for the whole family, low prices, and extra special values throughout the store, Kmart makes holiday shopping extra easy. Know what else Kmart makes easy? Feeding the hungry. Just shop to join Kmart in the American Express Charge Against Hunger campaign. Every time you use the American Express card or Optima cards at Kmart, Kmart will donate 5 cents to help feed the hungry. By December 31st, that can add up to $250,000. So shop at Kmart and give a little goodwill toward men, women, and children. Not tax deductible by card members.
Another smart solution from the U.S. Postal Service.
For 5,000 years, people have used and depended on gold because it maintains its value in a way other investments cannot. It's easier now than ever to own gold. Just ask for it by name. Just say Krugerrand, the world's favorite gold bullion coin. And Seattle's favorite dealer, Rhine Precious Metals and Jewelry, is on the 4th floor of the Washington Federal Bank building across from Nordstrom. Krugerrands are made in 4 convenient sizes, the 1 ounce, half, quarter, and 10th ounce. They have beautiful packaging for the coins for gift giving, whether unmounted or mounted to wear with a chain in coin jewelry. Street-level stores simply can't match their 4th floor prices. Remember, just say Krugerrand, available at Rhine Precious Metals and Jewelry. Stop in to see them at 425 Pike on the 4th floor in the Washington Bank building across from Nordstrom. Now open Monday through Saturdays till New Year. For precious metals and a full line of fine jewelry, see Rhine, R-H-Y-N-E, Rhine Precious Metals and Jewelry.
Well, here's to you.
No, here's to you.
Happy divorce.
Well, here we are.
Same cozy restaurant where we met.
And you look exactly the same. You wore that same blue suit.
Yeah.
Same tie.
Right.
You even got the same champagne.
No. Actually, this is Domaine Saint-Michel Champagne Brut.
Domaine Saint what?
Domaine Saint-Michel.
Oh, delicious.
That's because it's from the Columbia Valley. The same 48th parallel as the famous Champagne region of France. Same kind of climate, soil. The whole thing is called the Bubble Belt. Produces intensely flavorful grapes.
I can't believe this.
It's true. Look at a map.
No, I mean, I wanted a divorce because you were so rigid and inflexible.
I know.
And now you think of Domaine Saint-Michel.
Engagement with Phyllis.
What?
Domaine Saint-Michel, made in the French Méthode Champenoise tradition, is available wherever fine wines are sold in Western Washington. Domaine Saint-Michel, Patterson, Washington.
More arresting than a cold shower. More powerful than a double tall non-fat. It's Pat Cashman and his morning crew. Weekdays on Cairo FM 100.7.
7 minutes before the hour. The Tom Leykis Show. George Stephanopoulos is still with us on the phone. Thanks for hanging in there, George.
It's okay.
Was there something else you wanted to say? Because I want to give you the last word here.
No, go for it. Ask a question.
What was my question? Did I have a question?
I don't know.
I don't think I had a question. I just think I made a point. And the point was that for people who are really in the hole, for people like my dad is a victim of technology. His job has pretty much been computerized, and he's at an age where job retraining is difficult. It's difficult to find a new job. You know, there are a lot of guys like him, guys who worked on factory assembly lines, guys who worked at a newspaper where at one time they took a ruler and a number 1 lead or number 3 lead pencil, number 1 lead pencil, I guess. I never did this for a living. And they drew out the layout of the newspaper, and now you can do it on a computer in half an hour instead of taking a whole workday to do it. There are all kinds of people in this position. And tax cuts sound great. They sound awfully Republican to me. But the real truth is that for somebody who doesn't make a living, a tax cut doesn't do them any good. Well, we're not talking middle class anymore. We're talking lower middle class or less.
That's definitely true, but that's not all the president's doing. And I think you know that.
Really?
And absolutely. If you look at what the president's done, if you look at the training programs he's put in place, and you're probably right, for your dad at his age, it's a lot tougher. And we just have to make sure we have a strong safety net in the country for people who have disabilities, for people who have illnesses, for people who can't get another job, to make sure that they still are taken care of. And under the president's budget, that all happens. I'll tell you one thing, under the contract with America, that the Republicans are pushing, that safety net is gone. It is long gone. And you've got the president in there fighting for it. Everything is a matter of choices. Everything is a matter of alternatives. But you can't reduce the president's entire program to tax cuts.
I'm real short on time, George. I'm going to ask you one final question real quickly now. $25 billion in new defense spending. How is that going to help the middle class?
We need a strong America. We need to make sure that our military forces are ready and secure. And
didn't the president just cut defense spending in the last 2 years?
The defense spending has been going down, as you know, ever since the Berlin Wall came down, ever since the end of the Cold War.
And now it's going back up. I'm out of time, George, but I really appreciate you being with us, and I really appreciate you taking the time, but we're out of time. Thank you.
You're listening to the Tom Leykis Show. Alka-Seltzer or Bromo-Seltzer. They sound the same, but there are two differences. In lab tests, 2 3/4 capsules of Bromo-Seltzer had 29% more acid-neutralizing capacity than 2 Alka-Seltzer tablets. That's 29% more than Alka-Seltzer. And Bromo-Seltzer contains the non-aspirin pain reliever used most by hospitals, while Alka-Seltzer contains aspirin. So for 29% more acid-neutralizing capacity and the pain reliever used most by hospitals, choose Bromo-Seltzer. Use only as directed.
It's the week before Christmas, so finish off your list at Sears Brand Central, where everything is on sale.
What perfect timing.
All electronics are on sale. All TVs, camcorders, VCRs, stereos, all computers. All major appliances are on sale. All washers, dryers, refrigerators, microwaves, vacuums too.
A Christmas shopper's dream.
3 days only, Thursday through Saturday. Don't miss it.
Miss it? I wouldn't dream of it.
At Sears, where wishes come home for the holidays. Some exclusions apply. See store for details.
I live in Seattle. My sister lives up in Everett. We're on the phone almost every day. Did you know the local phone company bills the calls I make to her as toll calls? Boy, that really adds up.
Now when calling from home, you can save up to 15% or more on toll calls to places within the 206 Puget Sound and Olympia areas just by dialing 10-ATT first.
10-ATT, dial it and save.
Just dial 10-ATT plus 1 plus the area code and number. No need to sign up, no monthly fee.
10-ATT, dial it and save.
On toll calls within the 206 Puget Sound and Olympia areas, save up to 15% or more by dialing 10-ATT first.
Now I can call her whenever.
10-ATT, dial it and save.
AT&T is bringing quality and savings even closer to home. Savings versus U.S. West basic rates where billing available. Actual savings may vary based on individual calling patterns.
Your true voice.
I was getting my Tuesday night jollies with the printers at a computer store when a troubled lady stopped me.
Nick Cannon, print detective.
She knew me on sight, hopefully not from that Cleveland incident.
It's my husband. He needs a great color printer, but he needs help with color. Big help.
How bad is it?
Yo, Pete, come on in!
Whoa, I was looking at a guy wearing the most foul, disgusting mix of colors I'd ever seen. He didn't just violate good taste, he violated nature.
What's wrong?
I fought back my nausea and drug him over to the Canon BJC 600E color printer. I hit the print sample button.
Hey, cool.
Okay, it's fast. It's beautiful. But what happens when Pete gets his hands on it?
Relax, I said. The BJC 600E color printer has a color advisor. It automatically picks custom colors for you. No mistakes. Give it a try, big guy.
Okie dokie.
Oh, Pete, it's beautiful.
The Canon BJC 600E color printer with color advisor for under $500. Now there's no mystery to perfect colors.
Hey, Nick, where can I get a hot pink tie for my orange leisure suit?
Dealer prices may vary.
Cairo FM would like to take this moment and offer you a shameless plug for its own programming. Catch Pat Cashman weekday mornings from 5 till 9 right here on Cairo FM.
Two minutes before the hour, the Tom Leykis Show. The mic was not on there. I can't hide it. Stay tuned. The Tom Leykis Show.
Yep, that's the Tom Leykis Show, all right. 3:59 at Cairo FM. I'm Sarah Johnson. Traffic and weather locally. We have a car fire northbound 5 just north of Highway 2 up in Everett, and northbound 5 also slows from 145th into Linwood. Southbound 5 is heavier from 50th onto the Ship Canal Bridge. There's a large hose in the two middle lanes of southbound 5 in the Duwamish curves down by Tukwila. Watch out for that. Eastbound 520, the heavier of the two bridges backing up onto I-5. And there's word of a stalled car northbound 405 at Coal Creek in the left lane. The forecast, increasing high clouds this afternoon, highs near 50. Tonight, mostly cloudy with a chance of rain late, lows in the lower 40s. And then tomorrow, rain is likely, highs will be in the upper 40s. This is KIRO FM Seattle. The time, 4 o'clock.
CBS News, I'm Nick Young. Financially strapped Orange County, California has taken another step aimed at putting its fiscal house in order. As David Dow reports, it's going to hurt.
It is the other shoe that had been expected to drop since Orange County went into bankruptcy. County supervisors have ordered more than $40 million in budget cuts, about a sixth of the portion of the budget that they have control over. Along with that, they are giving department heads the power to freeze salaries and lay off workers without the usual red tape. And the sheriff says he at least expects significant staff reductions. The county employees union worries about what a spokesman calls a steamroller.
Union leaders are especially upset that they weren't consulted before the cuts were announced. There are reports that Russian jets have launched new airstrikes against the rebel Chechen capital of Grozny. Some 24 people, including an American photojournalist, were killed in raids today. And on the ground, reports Jonathan Sanders, there are Russian arms everywhere.
The roads leading into the Chechen capital of Grozny today were clogged with heavy tanks, self-propelled siege vehicles, a variety of rocket launchers, including the famous shrapnel-like Grad rocket system.
Still, the Chechens aren't showing any signs of backing down. The leader of the rebellious region is calling on his followers to wage a holy war against the Russians. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's out with new smoking stats. Ted Vygotsky takes a look.
There wasn't much change in the overall prevalence of current smokers in 1993 compared to the year before, but the CDC's Dr. Michael Erickson did find a significant decline in daily smoking, especially among women.
One of the things that we think is happening with the reduction in daily smoking is that restrictions in the workplace are encouraging people to either quit smoking entirely or to quit smoking every day. And we also know from some other research that women seem to be more affected by workplace restrictions.
Erickson says for the first time ever among adults, we have as many ex-smokers as current smokers, about 46 million in each category. Ted Vygotsky for CBS News, Atlanta.
The federal government is cranking up the pressure on deadbeat moms and dads. Attorney General Janet Reno says prosecutors have filed 28 suits around the country aimed at collecting almost $1 million in overdue child support.
Federal prosecutors are acting under a 1992 law that provides federal criminal penalties whenever a parent owes more than $5,000 in support to a child in another state, and when the parent has the ability to pay, and when that parent has literally thumbed their nose at the court and the children.
Reno says deadbeat parents owe a total of $34 million in support payments. On Wall Street today, the Dow closed up 13 points to finish the session at 3814.92. This is CBS News.
Shop at Kmart Wednesdays and Saturdays and bring your film. Get 2 sets of 4x6 prints for the price of 1 set. You'll be in the right place to do your holiday shopping, and you'll be doing the right thing to help feed the hungry. When you use the American Express card or Optima cards at Kmart will donate 5 cents to the American Express Charge Against Hunger campaign. By December 31st, that can add up to $250,000. So come to Kmart, get great gifts for your family, and give goodwill toward men, women, and children. Not tax deductible by card members.
If you think your carpet is dirty, imagine how dirty a carpet with 40,000 people a day walking on it looks. Hi, I'm David Orrick. We're at International Airport, where my 8-pound Orrick XL is the vacuum of choice. In fact, my Orrick XL is the choice of cleaning professionals in thousands of hotels around the world. Try it in your own home absolutely free for 15 days. Call 1-800-989-4200. For a free brochure, 1-800-989-4200.
Time is slipping away in the latest round of Major League Baseball talks. Owners who are threatening to impose a salary cap in 5 hours are considering the latest contract offer.
We presented our counterproposal to them, and they're reviewing it right now. We're waiting to hear back from them.
Kansas City Royals pitcher David Cohn says the union's offer is a significant proposal. For media giant Time Warner, there are no good sports north of the border. Canada, saying it has to protect its cultural identity, will slap a surtax on the Canadian edition of Sports Illustrated as part of widespread copyright and tax law reforms. But Nick Watson, the sales manager of the Canadian edition, says the magazine is not a threat culturally or economically.
We have no competitor. There is no other magazine here, sports, the way Sports Illustrated it is, that covers all different sports. They accuse us of taking money out of the advertising pot when a lot of the advertising that we carry wouldn't be in that pot to begin with.
The Canadian magazine industry claims it's being overrun by a U.S. cultural juggernaut. Nick Young, CBS News.
4:05 at Cairo FM. I'm Sarah Johnson with some news. A huge cash-only bail requested by King County prosecutors for a Bellevue man thought to be rich and dangerous. Prosecutors want to keep former Microsoft employee William Carey in jail. He's accused of stalking, tape recording, and burglarizing his ex-girlfriend. When the 36-year-old Carey was recently arrested, powerful rifles with scopes were found in his car. Police also seized receipts for expensive spying equipment. Prosecutors wanted bail set at $500,000. The Rainier Brewery's newest beer, called Yakima Red, may find its way into the courtroom before the bar room. The president of Yakima Brewing in Yakima says Rainier's owner, Chicago-based Heilemann Brewing Company, is stepping on Yakima property. Sherry Grant says her company used to produce a cider called Yakima, and local beer drinkers are likely to get the names confused. This is Cairo FM.
From Los Angeles, it's the Tom Leykis Show.
Oh, God.
And now, he is Tom Leykis.
6 minutes after the hour, thank you for tuning into the Tom Leykis Show. This is where America gets together to talk about the issues you really care about. This is America's fastest growing radio talk program, a talk show that is not hosted by the usual gang of right-wing wackos or convicted felons. No, I am your host. Write down our toll-free telephone number. You're going to need it. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. 1-800-5800-866. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you are listening to our broadcast live, we are being simulcast on C-SPAN, so you can just do a little channel flipping, and you will find us on television right now, as a matter of fact. There I am. Hi. Yeah, okay, fine. Get that out of the way. Had to get that out of the way somewhere here. Thank you for tuning in. I wanted to talk a little bit about this Newt Gingrich deal, and also a little bit about Democrats and why they have done a lousy job of telling us what they stand for and who they are. They've been bullied by conservatives, whether it be talk show hosts or incoming speakers of the House. They just are not, it seems to me, able to articulate a position. They're not able to articulate on behalf of the people who Democrats once stood for, which was working people. If you're not working, a tax cut doesn't do you any good. Period. You're not paying any taxes. There's no job. My dad doesn't need a tax cut. Know why? He didn't have a job. He didn't have a pension. He has a pension. It's like that, okay? He didn't have any investments in mutual funds, very few interests in things like stocks or bonds. He's got a mortgage. He's got a second mortgage. He's got bills. He had cancer surgery a couple of years ago. It's always a risk that cancer could come back. My dad worked at a newspaper for the better part of 43 years, the New York Post. He was the unit manager of the Newspaper Guild of the New York Post. Okay, so he was like, he was the union guy. And the New York Post was always, it seemed to be, teetering on the brink of extinction. And somehow it always survived, first under an owner named Dorothy Schiff, and then under Rupert Murdoch, who bought the paper in 1976, and then again under a fellow named Peter Calico. It just went on and on and on. And it seemed that my dad was always involved in union negotiations where the end was near, and somehow the newspaper always survived. Well, Rupert Murdoch bought the newspaper back from a bankrupt Peter Calico. And my dad, many times as a union guy, agreed to defer raises, and instead of raises, agreed to take increases in his severance pay that he'd get somewhere down the road. Well, let me put this in brief for you. Peter Calico, the former owner of the New York Post, filed for bankruptcy. And by the way, even though he filed for bankruptcy, part of our wacky bankruptcy laws in America mean that, well, even though you claim to be bankrupt, at least on paper, you get to keep things like your cars, your houses. Peter Calico, if I recall correctly, owned 22 cars, got to keep them all. House in Montauk Point, Long Island. Oh, yes. But he's bankrupt, folks. And that seemed awfully peculiar at the time, but not nearly as peculiar as when Rupert Murdoch blew out my dad's union. Just blew them out. Boom. Blew them out. And when they got blown out, my dad was expecting to get somewhere in the vicinity of $95,000 in severance pay for 43 years of service. And instead of getting that, he was told that Mr. Calico going bankrupt had something to do with him not being able to get his severance pay. So instead of getting $95,000, he got somewhere in the vicinity of $7,000. He got something on the order of 12 cents on the dollar. And he lost his job. My dad is 62 years old. He works at a liquor store. He has 43 years of experience in the newspaper business and can't find a job. He can't get job retraining. And if he gets job retraining, let's face facts. How much time does he have to retrain before he's 64 or 65? And then what are the odds that he's going to get a job? So he lives on a minimal pension, Social Security, and that's about it. And he's got an awful lot of responsibility there, an awful lot of bills to pay. And, well, I got to tell you, a middle-class tax cut doesn't do my dad a lot of good. And I know my dad's not the only one. Let me just say this. I am not saying this because I feel persecuted. My family is persecuted. Oh, no. My family's not the only one. There are many people like my dad who were union employees in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. People who worked hard, people who thought you went to the assembly line every day, you did a day's work, you kept your nose clean, and one day you get to retire, make a little pension money, got a little something put away, you get your severance pay. And there's an awful lot of people, whether they be at newspapers, whether they be on assembly lines, wherever they are. My dad was one of only 300 people who lost their jobs. May I say that a lot of these people thought they were going to be retiring to Miami or something. And where are they now? They're like my dad. They're working in a liquor store for a few bucks an hour, hoping somebody will hear about their plight. And here is the president who is supposed to represent the working man, and my dad was a working man, let me tell you, for 43 years at the same place. Middle-class tax cut isn't doing him a whole hell of a lot of good. Giving him a tax deduction on college tuition, it's a little late. So essentially, and I know my folks can't deal with this and probably don't want me to be saying this, but I've got to say it because I've got the White House watching now, Mom and Dad, and there's no other chance I'm going to get to say it. My mom and dad are sitting there with my dad facing the possibility of more cancer surgery. And my mom and dad are sitting there with, they don't even want to look at how much money they owe. One day the end is going to come. They're not going to be able to pay the bills. They're not going to be able to pay him. My dad's going to be in the hospital. Guess what? When my dad lost his job, he went on that thing called COBRA. That's when they give you health insurance from your previous job after you are fired, right? Or you're laid off, or you resign to pursue other interests, or whatever they say these days, or you're terminated without prejudice, or whatever they do. My dad, who lives with my mom, was paying $400 and some odd a month. Understand, he's on a small pension and Social Security. My dad was paying $450 a month for health insurance. That's over $5,000 a year. Now, if that isn't enough, my dad, who had cancer and may have it again, my dad now faces a 72% increase in his COBRA to over $700 a month for health insurance. We're not talking about some lazy bum here, the kind of lazy bums that the Rush Limbaughs and the Newt Gingriches like to talk about.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a man who worked. We're talking about a man who sold Christmas trees to make extra money before Christmas when I was a kid. We're talking about a guy who worked 7 days a week when I was 12 and 13 years old, and I never saw him. He left at 6 o'clock in the morning and came home 11 o'clock at night. He sold ice cream from a soft ice cream truck in Long Island. I've hardly seen my dad most of the time I was growing up because he was working. This is a working person we're talking about. This is the kind of person that the Newt Gingriches of the world want you to believe is some kind of a lazy, irresponsible bum who doesn't deserve any help, who should have provided for himself. He did the best he could. He still does the best he can. He still goes out to work every day, even though I think my dad is one of the better newspaper people in this country. My dad is in the soup. And I want to know what a middle-class tax cut is going to do for people like him. And it's not just my dad. It's people who worked on the assembly lines in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Flint, Michigan. It's people who worked in the South at various plants that had the factories taken out from under them. People in the Rust Belt. People who worked in places like Troy, New York, where they had the Arrow shirt factory that just left town to avoid the unions and go down south. There's a lot of people like that out there. And we've got a president who disguises himself as a Republican, talking about tax cuts, talking about defense spending, hello, there are people who work their whole lives who are seeing their lives go up in smoke, and we have a Democratic president who doesn't understand, who doesn't articulate this. All he's concerned about is getting reelected in 1996. Let me tell you something. If you don't start being true to the people who elected you, if you don't start being true to the working people of America, even they are going to abandon you. Do you think people who support Newt Gingrich are going to vote for Bill Clinton? Give it up. You might as well be what you are, Bill Clinton. You might as well be a Democrat. I am not, by the way, a Democrat or a Republican. I'm in that big middle. But I got to tell you something. I am getting awfully frustrated with the fact that Republicans are doing a better job of PR than Democrats, who are always hiding behind the skirts of Flax and PR people, and they have layers and layers of George Stephanopoulos and Dee Dee Myers and Richard Strausses who call in and answer for the president. The president doesn't answer for himself, and I'm not trying to bait the president to call in. I'm just saying, when we want a Republican, just get on the phone. I interviewed Newt. I had him on. Bob Dornan, we have his home phone number. You call Bob at home, he'll come on the program. What a shame that people who represent the interests of working class Americans, people who don't think that everybody who's out of a job is a lazy bum, what a shame that politicians like that feel compelled to say, who's going to be on the show with him? Well, what's the opinion of the host? Well, he's going to be busy. Why don't we send Joe Blow, who you've never heard of, to come on, and he can answer for the senator, for the president, for the head of the Democratic Party, please. And I want to say one more thing, speaking of Rupert Murdoch, and this brings me to a story that came out today. You may not be aware of this because it's kind of a media story, and it probably stays on the business pages of your newspaper. The aforementioned Rupert Murdoch, who owns TV Guide and the Fox television networks, and used to own the Star, Star magazine, and he owns Current Affair and The Simpsons and all these different shows. Rupert Murdoch also owns a publishing company. Did you know that? Yes, he does. HarperCollins. It's a book publisher. Now, why is that relevant? Well, let me tell you why. A number of folks have noticed and brought to the attention of the Federal Communications Commission that the television stations that are run by Fox television stations are not owned by America or Americans. Do you know that a radio or television station cannot be more than 20% owned by a foreign person or a foreign entity? So in other words, if you come from England or Australia or Japan and you want to buy into a TV or radio station, you can't own more than 20% of it. Well, recently we find out that the Fox television stations are 99% or more owned by a company called News Corporation or News America, which is an Australian corporation. Rupert Murdoch was from Australia. He's a naturalized American. So now you have an Australian company that is controlling a television network and several television stations, including the TV stations that broadcast some of the stations that broadcast NFL football on Sunday, okay? Well, an investigation has been launched into this to find out if that's really true, that it is controlled by an Australian corporation, the Fox Television Network. And isn't it interesting, today we find out that the same Rupert Murdoch, who's being investigated by the Federal Communications Commission, offers a $4 million, $4.5 million advance to write a book for HarperCollins too. Dun, 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 dun. Newt Gingrich, the incoming Speaker of the House, and someone who has to oversee whether foreign ownership of American television and radio stations is a good thing. So here you have, and this is very interesting, here you have Republicans talking about all those darn foreigners who are coming in here and snatching up all the real estate and taking all our welfare and all that. Meanwhile, a slick Australian, they're foreigners too, even though they speak English, by the way. A slick Australian named Rupert Murdoch slips in here, buys all these television stations under the name Fox Television Stations, or Fox Television Group, or News America, or News Corporation. And then we find out News Corporation is an Australian corporation. So there's an Australian company operating American licensed television stations, which appears to be in violation of the law. And now Newt Gingrich and the people in the House of Representatives, they've got to investigate this. So what happens? Suddenly, Newt is an author. Suddenly, he gets a $4.5 million advance to write a book. Is that an advance to write a book? Or is that a bribe? I'm just asking a question. And it's a question that the Rush Limbaughs of the world are not going to ask. Let me give you our telephone number. I think you might have some comments on some of the things we've had to say. It's toll-free from across North America. It's 1-800-5800-TOM. Thank you for tuning in. Joining us on our newsmaker line, because he loves us, is Republican Congressman Bob Dornan, who is, of course, representing the 46th District, which is in Orange County here in Southern California. Bob, nice of you to call in. Not surprised to hear from you today.
Mr. Leykis, I'm sorry I interrupted here and cut Dornan off. I want to get some equal time here. This Dornan tried to nail me with a Moscow trip back in '92. I don't like this guy, so we used White House communications. We just interrupted his line. That's the way it's got to be.
You're out of your mind, Bob.
I'm telling you that you're on a roll here. If they put Cuomo on the air, he is so pedantic. He has a different type of energy than you have, than a lot of the right-wing radio hosts have. He's got this professorial, intense energy where he lectures to you. They'll try him for a while, and any of the 150-some stations you're not on will dump him and pick you up.
Oh, good.
Because you've got the drive to present the liberal point of view with fun, and with energy, and with a way that makes it palpable to people. They don't want to be lectured at. They want to have some fun while they're being informed.
Well, Bob, you are very nice to call in and say that. We've always had fun having you on, and this is the point. You know, I don't believe in having a show which is a relentless drumbeat of anything.
Exactly.
Any one opinion, any one person, any one cause. You and I have done shows together for years, and my God, we don't agree on a lot politically, but I would never leave you out of the mix.
Exactly. And you know, if somebody, like if I had a show right now, I would be after Bill Richardson, who's a liberal Democrat, a friend of mine, a good guy, and a super heart on all issues, human rights and civil rights. We went to Sarajevo together on the eve of the war starting a month later, and we were just heartbroken that there was no way to stop these people from going at one another. So here is Bill on a trip that I was asked to go on in North Korea. I had made a commitment to go down to Haiti. I spent all Monday down there, and to be over in Luxembourg and Belgium for the 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, which was the bloodiest battle in American history, 19,000 killed in action, and 350 prisoners executed by the SS Panzer units under
Joachim Piper, so it was a good spot to be, and I wish now that I was in North Korea. But I'd be going after Bill Richardson, a loyal son of New Mexico, and a faithful Democrat liberal.
Now, I got about 20 seconds before the break here, but a lot of people don't know you used to do this for a living here in Los Angeles.
I did, and I did it with a lot of energy, and I had on every liberal that wanted to come on. Jess Unruh, the late, great Big Daddy of Sacramento, used to come on all the time. We had a great friendship going. I put John Tunney on 3 times.
I'll tell you what, Bob. We're going to take a break.
Sure.
But I want to come back, and among the other things I'm going to talk about are the contract with America and some other stuff. So stay right there.
The Tom Leykis Show.
4:30. America's fastest growing radio talk program. And I'm not even a right-wing wacko, a convicted felon, a bigot. I'm not on a work release program. How the hell did this happen? 1-800-5800-TOM is our telephone number. We're talking with Republican Congressman Bob Dornan, who joins us from Virginia. And Bob, you are still there.
Dornan makes me sick. I'm going to have Hillary come over and kick his butt. Get off the line. You'll have your chance later.
You're a nut. You're a nut.
Serious stuff here.
Contract with America. Now, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, okay? But here we have the contract with America, and I'm holding it right here in my hot little hand. The contract with America, which talks about balanced budget amendments, line item vetoes, violent criminals, welfare reform.
Go to my favorite, term limits.
Term limits, which is the last one there, which we heard Newt Gingrich say they'll discuss, but they won't necessarily pass it in Congress, which I thought was awfully interesting, now that he is becoming the Speaker of the House. But isn't it interesting, and maybe you can explain this to me, how it certainly seemed that once Republicans kicked Democratic butt back in November, the first issue that seemed to come up was school prayer. Where did that come from?
It's not in the contract, and I, for one, believe it was a big waste of time because everybody knows the best you're going to come up with is 30 seconds of silence. And if you're in a school district that's melting down with guns on campus and drugs everywhere, all that's going to happen is 30 seconds of checking out the newest chick in the school and everybody crossing their arms with their street symbols going 2-3 man, from which street. It's not going to work. It's a waste of time, and it diverts us from things that really can help American families, like a huge exemption for children on your 1040 form.
What do you think about the president's proposed quote-unquote middle-class tax cut?
Well, we're into a pathetic bidding season at Christmas time when we ought to be reflective. Here is the president trying to jump on this bandwagon that carried the Republicans to victory, and he's damn lucky that he didn't try to shoot his way into Haiti, because the highest-ranking people down there told me the minimum U.S. killed in action would have been 20 or so. A couple of those would have been friendly fire, no matter how hard we try to eliminate it. And I said, how many Haitians would have been killed? They said several hundred, and it would have been over in a day, but they said there still would have been several hundred deaths. How many would have been innocent people caught in the crossfire? And they said at least half. And I said, my God, this would have cost Clinton, Clinton another 20 seats. They said, well, that's your business, but it certainly wouldn't have been a good-looking thing on network TV. So Jimmy Carter, Ace Carpenter, saved Clinton and the Democrats from losing another 20 seats.
Now, how much of this contract with America is actually going to happen? I mean, you guys have the majority.
I think it's all going to happen, and the one that is going to be painful to senior Republicans is that term limit one. Now, some of my best friends in the House, Henry Hyde of Illinois, Tom DeLay, who just won the majority whip job, they have been very frank. No way for term limits before, after. They've never, they thought elections are for term limits. That's the best counterattack. But those of us who have been for term limits for 20 years, and I found my declaration handwritten statement on a yellow legal tab from 19 years ago, this coming January 26th, and one of the big items in there when I was leaving LA Broadcasting to run was that I would only hang around of 12 years max, which is what I'm doing in Orange County, and I'm keeping my word. This is my 11th and 12th year. So I'm going to stick to my guns, debate it out on the floor, and now I've come down from 12 to 6. So it is going to be a hot debate. People are going to say, what, you mean I just get the power and I have to check out in 6 years? Well, that's the promises that many of us made to keep so that somebody else can have a shot. Well, I want to make it the people's house, rotating every 6 years, people in and out, so lots of people will get a shot at being speaker. And besides, you can leave the House and run for the Senate, the governor's race, go back to the state Senate, run for mayor somewhere, run for president, for God's sake.
You can come here and do a show, Bob.
That's right.
Come back home.
Well, see, Tom, that does make a difference. I have something to do out there in the other world. A lot of these guys can't figure out how they're ever going to make $133,600 a year ever again, and they're going to cling to this job.
All right, now, Bob, I got to run here, but I want to say this.
Sure.
I want to check back in with you regarding this contract with America.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Newt is the most dynamic thing to hit this city in a long time, and it's not just 40 years, Tom. When Hoover was hit with the crash in 29, we lost the House the next year in 30. That's 64 years ago, and we've only had 4 of those 64 years. So people like Bonnier and Gephardt, stop whining and crying. Hunker down as the loyal opposition and kick some tail the way we did for 40 years straight and for 60 out of 64. My God, if they were doomed to 20 or 30 years, they'd be jumping off the Capitol dome. We'd have to have a round-the-clock watch up there grabbing Democrats by the heels before they splatter in the east and west parking lots.
All right, Bob, I got to run here, but we're going to talk again soon. We're going to keep up with you, and we're going to find out what's going on, and I really appreciate the fact that you keep in touch with us, which is more than I can say for the president.
Betcha. And Tom, keep pushing term limits. It's a chance for you and I to change seats, and you can be inside the belly of the dragon for 6 fast years.
Thank you, Bob.
You betcha, pal.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Christmas.
Same to you and your family. Appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye. There goes Congressman Bob Dornan, Republican, representing the 46th District of lovely and bankrupt Orange County. But Bob had nothing to do with that. All right, coming up, your telephone calls from across America, not just on the air, on the radio, but also on C-SPAN. Our telephone number for the uninitiated, 1-800-5800-TOM. It's 1-800-5800-866. 19 minutes now before the hour. My name is Tom Leykis, and we will continue.
This is
a big group of people.
Well, yeah, a certain group of people.
A certain big group of people.
Right, a big group of people. But the point of the tax cut is to help out a group of people and stimulate the entire economy and benefit everyone in the process. And I think you're missing the point there.
But wait a minute. The economy has been improving.
Right.
I mean, first of all, we heard on this program, George Stephanopoulos called in and say that the economy has been improving the last 2 years. We don't need a tax cut to stimulate the economy. This budget is $170 billion in the red. If you want to cut spending to pay for a tax cut, don't cut spending to pay for a tax cut. Cut spending and apply the savings to the deficit. And by the way, that's what most Americans want the government to do.
But then again, I'm not necessarily advocating Clinton's proposal for tax cuts where he's cutting back all these different programs. I'm just saying the point, the idea behind the tax cuts in general, particularly the Republican version, is to benefit the entire economy, benefit the certain groups of the economy, and bring up business and things like that.
How is it going to do that?
Like that?
How is giving people a tax break on college tuition going to benefit the economy?
It's going to allow people to invest and stimulate.
Invest in what?
Invest when they put money in the bank, when they have money to save and invest in other things, then they're going to be stimulating the economy in other sectors.
But wait a minute. If we have a $170 billion budget deficit and interest rates are going up as they have been, that means the interest on the national debt is going to go up. And that means the budget deficit is going to start going up. And then when you cut taxes and cut revenues, the budget deficit is going to go up further. We heard this argument from Republicans all through the 80s who cut taxes, and the budget deficit went up and up and up and up. It went up and up and up.
As long as people are willing to invest in the government's bonds and federal invest in the federal government in general, they're still going to have money to pay off the budget deficit. It's a rolling deficit. It's not as if it goes up and it has a stopping point. We can always, as long as we have people investing in the budget.
$170 billion deficit. Do you know how much that is?
Yes, I do.
How much?
It's a lot of money. But
it's a lot of money. And
it's not money that's coming due at a certain day. It's money that's continually rolling over and having new investments.
It's 170,000. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's 100,000 times 170. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
Sure it is, but the point I'm making is the middle class tax cuts would benefit the economy.
How?
More people invest in it because
invest what? How much are you going to get, and how much are you going to invest?
When I don't.
How much do you earn?
I'm a student in college.
All right, so
if I didn't have to pay for my college like I'm doing, I could put money in the bank, which would in turn benefit the economy because that would allow for new loans and all kinds of other transactions to occur.
But we don't put the money in the bank in this country. We're not savers. We don't put the money away.
There are a lot of people that do that.
Most don't. All right, laugh it up, Robert. Thanks for the call. 1-800-5800-TOM. What can I say? I love these amateur economists who call in here, and they're explaining about investing, and this guy doesn't make a living. He's a student. He doesn't make any money. A tax cut is not going to do him any good. Maybe his parents. I don't know. Let's continue here with Mark in Del Mar, New York. Mark, you're on the Tom Leykis Show. Hello.
Thomas, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm calling from your old haunts up around Albany, the QBK land.
Very well. Now we're on WGY, Mark, so you got to listen to us at night.
Well, it gives you an idea of my radio habits. Listen,
well, it's WGY 8 to 11.
I gotcha. I'm usually trying to work during those times.
Well, stop working and listen to the radio, for God's sake.
Tom, here's where I'm at on this. You know, I grew up in Hyde Park, New York, which was really in the shadow of the Roosevelt home. Came to Albany. I've spent the last 20 years here. Really a homegrown Democrat in a lot of ways, and I have to tell you that I am beyond belief as to how badly the Democratic Party has lost its focus, lost its position. Can't even begin to get close to articulating what it wants to do. And then last week to watch the president basically take a chameleon flip-flop attitude once again and promise us what we've been hearing from the Republican side was just unbelievable. The most unbelievable part about it to me is that now we're willing to walk away from any traditional belief that government can, in some cases, do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
We believe now that things like the FAA should be privatized. We should let business watch out over its own tail. We're going to trust business to do the right thing.
Well, like we have Rupert Murdoch.
Oh, exactly.
Giving $4.5 million to the incoming Speaker of the House as a book advance while he's being investigated by the federal government. And we just sit back going, Democrats essentially will sit back and you think that this won't be allowed to stand? You think that Rupert Murdoch won't get to keep owning those stations? Please.
Well, you know, the bottom line to this whole situation here is that we have to take a look at that our government in protecting the rights and the certain safety of our people, whether it's the FDA, the FCC, or any other function of government, oh my God, the military, we've got to depoliticize these things, and we've got to say, out of that pot, we're not going to cut under the guise that this is somehow returning back to the free market system, regulations that go right out the window.
What bothers me, and I know you agree with me on this, Mark, is the Democrats have become impotent. They have become, they sound like NPR. They sound like they're in a coma most of the time. The fact is, there are people who work and slave, and they're not welfare cheats. They're not lazy bums. They work, and they still can't get ahead.
Exactly.
And there is a need for a party that represents them, and the Democrats are flailing around trying to be Republicans. Hello? What about people who work for a living? What about them?
Tom, one of the things that you said, which is most accurate, really goes to the issue that there can be a caller or a guest on your show that you are diametrically opposed to in terms of opinion, but you respect the person because they're consistent and they articulate and they're clear about what they're trying to say. All of us in our lives will run into people that we just don't agree with, but if that person is clear about what they represent, we can at least respect the position. We're on the verge of losing not only votes, but respect for the Democratic Party because it's incapable.
Well, I'm not a member of the Democratic Party. I refuse to be a member of the Democratic Party.
Well,
until they find somebody who can articulate the plight of people who work hard and actually then have programs to benefit people who just need a leg up, who want to work hard.
Well, of course, as a party, if it represented those people and articulated those people and their plight, you could decide you were going to vote for them or not, but at least you would understand what the party represents. Now you can't even do that. because every other day the party zigs and zags in territory that has no business being in. There is nothing wrong with a party having a position. My God, you don't have to like the Communist Party. You don't have to like radical Nazi parties, but you can at least understand what they represent. The Democratic Party is on the verge of losing that focus completely.
I agree with you. Mark, thank you for the call.
Hey, Tom, have a good holiday.
Thanks. I'm glad you caught up with us.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Our telephone number toll-free from across America, 1-800-5800-TOM. My name is Tom Leykis. It's 8 minutes now before the hour.
You're listening to the Tom Leykis Show.
I had an itchy rash.
That's Marie Malakany of Glenshaw, Pennsylvania.
I previously used cortisone 10. Then I used Gold Bond medicated cream.
Gold Bond medicated anti-itch cream. Itch relief that starts to work on contact. And a recent clinical study showed at 10 minutes, Gold Bond cream provided more effective itch relief than cortisone 10. And Gold Bond contains 2 medically proven pain relievers not found in cortisone 10.
The Gold Bond cream relieved my itch immediately.
Try